Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and once again, we have a trade to talk about in the NBA, this time between the Blazers and the Kings involving Kent Bazemore and Trevor Ariza. So we're going to talk about that in today's video, but really quickly before we get started, if you're new here and you like the NBA, then consider subscribing. I upload basically every single day. Also, really quickly before the video officially gets started, I want to give a huge shout out to you guys because yesterday we hit 70,000 subscribers on the channel, and the goal for this year in 2020 is get to 100K. But regardless of that, even if you just showed up or if you've been here since 10,000 subs or even before that, I just wanted to give a shout out to you guys and say that I appreciate it, and that, like I said, we are on the road to hopefully getting to 100K in 2020. And I thank you guys for viewing the videos and for hanging out. Okay, so as I talked about in the last trade video that I did, every trade to me matters, which is why I'm going to cover every single trade in a video of the trade season. And this is, I believe, the third trade that we've had so far in NBA trade season this year. And the deal is the Portland Trailblazers sending Kent Bazemore, Anthony Tolliver, and 2 future second-round picks to the Kings in exchange for Trevor Ariza, Wenyen Gabriel, and Caleb Swanigan. And the interesting part about this trade for me was that initially a lot of people were making the case that this was a move made entirely based around money for the Portland Trailblazers, as if there were no basketball reasons to make the move. And to me, that's just not true at all, because you have this big expiring contract in Kent Bazemore, who hasn't been playing well at all this year, isn't really that impactful of a player for them. He certainly plays, but from an efficiency standpoint, from a defense standpoint, hasn't been great. And then Anthony Tolliver is in the same boat. And then you're giving away the 2 second-round picks. And yes, there are cost savings involved here. You're saving about $12.5 million in salary overall, about $7 million on their luxury tax bill, and in exchange you're getting players that are younger, and like Swanigan and Gabriel. And then you're getting Trevor Ariza as well, who's on a bit of a longer term contract, but makes less this season and has a partial guarantee for next year. So technically, yes, they're losing out in the expiring contract of Bazemore, but they can trade for Ariza, have him play for them this year. They can keep him next year on about $12 million, or they can waive him and only pay about $1.8 million that is guaranteed on his contract for next year. So let's begin with Portland, since I'm already talking about them anyway. Again, a lot of people were saying that this is strictly a financial move, but I actually really like this deal for them for a couple of reasons. One, like I said, Bazemore is really not playing well for them. It's not a huge loss to swap him for Ariza. And in theory, ideally, in my head at least, Ariza is a better fit for this team than Bazemore was, because they're a little bit different. They're both, primarily off-ball players, ideally guys that can defend, guys that can shoot, but Bazemore needs the ball in his hands a little bit more, whereas Ariza can be a guy that can just strictly play off the ball, shoot, and defend. And he hasn't been having a good last season and a half or so, and really the last time he had a really good season was when he was playing with the Rockets when they won 65 games. But still, I think this is a valuable player for Portland, and I would not be surprised at all if he turned around his play in Portland in a new system on a team that he actually wants to play for. I understand that he just signed the free agency deal with Sacramento this past offseason, but it's pretty clear that that's not a situation that many players want to be in now, at least the guys that they signed in free agency over the summer. So in a new situation, maybe there's new motivation for him, and I would not be surprised at all to see him start to play much better, and maybe this spark a bit of a turnaround for this team. I do think there are more moves coming, which I'll talk about later in the video, but still, I don't think this was entirely about money either. Yes, they're giving up 2 second-round picks, but I also like the 2 bigs that they're getting back. Wenyen Gabriel and Caleb Swanigan are both talented players. Gabriel is a guy that can space the floor a little bit. They're not going to be huge pieces of the rotation or anything, but they provide front court depth at least while they're waiting on guys like Zach Collins and Jusuf Nurkic to come back. And in my opinion, they're better pieces than Anthony Tolliver. So I really don't get, some of the hate that the Blazers are getting for this deal. Just because they saved money in it doesn't mean that's the only reason that they made the deal. And again, I kind of like it. All right, now for the Kings, there's also financial incentive for this as well, because they immediately get out of Ariza's money in exchange for an expiring contract in Bazemore, and then obviously they're getting the second-round picks as well, basically in exchange for Gabriel and Swanigan. There's really not that much else to talk about here for the Kings in terms of what this deal means. They're swapping wings, they're saving money in the long term, at least in terms of next year. Again, Bazemore's deal will expire. They could have just bought out Ariza next year, who waived him and only paid his 1.8 partially guaranteed salary, but still there's some money saving involved long term here for the Kings. And I feel like this deal is more about money saving for the Kings than it is for the Blazers, at least in a long-term sense. Obviously, initially, there's the salary and luxury tax savings that I talked about with the Blazers initially. From a basketball perspective, I guess you could say that Bazemore is a better player than Ariza right now, but I feel like it's really honestly just a toss-up. He's someone that can maybe help them with a little bit of on-ball playmaking, a little bit of shooting off the ball, and a little bit of defense, but at the end of the day, this is about getting out from under a contract that they literally just signed this past offseason in Trevor Ariza, which is becoming a theme for this team over the last handful of off seasons, trading away the free agents that they literally just signed, and I wouldn't be surprised if another one in Dwayne Dedmon is on his way out later on. Okay, let's talk now about what this means moving forward, what some other, what this move could set up for these teams. So for Portland, a lot of the reaction initially was, oh no, they're giving up this big expiring contract that was Kent Bazemore. Like that was one of the big pieces that they had. It's not that big of a deal. They still have the huge Hassan Whiteside expiring, which honestly is the less palatable of the expirings from a player standpoint. People would probably rather trade for Kent Bazemore than Hassan Whiteside just based off a locker room circumstance, based off a locker room perspective. And they, even though Whiteside is probably a better player than Bazemore relative to their positions currently, you'd probably rather bring in Bazemore than Whiteside to your locker room. But still, if they wanted to make, say, a Kevin Love trade, then there are still options for that because they have the big Hassan Whiteside expiring. And in my opinion, I do think that they're going to make another deal before the deadline. There's no way that a team that is this many games under 500, I believe 5 or 6 as of the recording of this video, with the talent of having guys like Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum in the backcourt and having Yusuf Nurkic come back later on in the season ideally and be healthy, there's no way a team like that is going to just stand pat and say, hey, hopefully we get the 8th seed. They're going to make some moves. They're going to try and make some things happen, and they still have the opportunity to even after this deal. For the Kings, it's basically just whatever they want to do with Dwayne Dedmon. I still think he's a valuable player. I understand that he's not playing very many minutes for Sacramento, but as a guy that is a good defender, although that is decreasing, and a guy that can space the floor and make shots, I think he would be a really interesting addition at the 5 spot for any number of different contenders around the league, because I think he's someone that can survive in a playoff series and again can space the floor and defend, which are two really critical things. So overall with this deal, it isn't the biggest trade in the world, right? And I think we're going to start to see some other slightly big ones. Like I'm getting less and less convinced that there's going to be an Andre Drummond trade coming up pretty soon, but you never know. But these are the kinds of deals, again, that interest me, like understanding, what each team was trying to get out of the deal financially, as well as based off the players that they're getting. And I want to hammer home this point at the end of this video as well. I would not be surprised if 3 or 4 weeks from now, we're looking at a Blazers team that's suddenly creeping towards 500 as a result of bringing in Trevor Ariza. This is no disrespect to Kent Bazemore, and statistically he's having a better year than Ariza. I just think that this is a guy that is going to realize, hey, this team has the talent to make a postseason run, to maybe even do some things in the postseason. If I get it together, if I start making shots, if I start defending, and I think there's an extra level of motivation there for Trevor Ariza that does not exist in Sacramento. He's still making his money, but he's on a better team from a talent standpoint, at least in my opinion, and a team that has a much better chance of making the postseason. So he doesn't feel like he's just wasting away his season in Sacramento. Now, it's definitely possible that he continues to not shoot the ball well in Portland, and this was just a immediately cost-saving move for this team. But I think that this is a good deal for them. There's interesting pieces involved with Wenyen Gabriel and Caleb Swanigan, and I definitely would rather be on Portland's side of this deal than I would Sacramento. I understand the cost saving from Sacramento and the 2 second-round picks, but I don't really think that they're helping their team any this year, whereas I think there is a chance that Portland is helping their team this year. So in the long run, like I said, not the most impactful trade, not the most interesting trade, but I think this is potentially setting up other things for these teams, whether it be Portland trading for someone like Kevin Love or maybe even LaMarcus Aldridge or whatever the other options maybe. They still have guys like Nasir Little, guys like Zach Collins, they have picks, they have Hassan Whiteside, they have other options, they have Anthony Simons if they wanted to trade him. I'm not saying that those guys are on the block, but if something came up where they were interested in a deal to try and push them towards the postseason, they still have plenty of pieces. It's not like just trading away this one big expiring Kent Bazemore ruins all of their trade possibilities. And then for Sacramento, like I said, really the only other move I see for them moving forward is moving Dwayne Dedmon, who I think they could actually get pretty good value for. So you guys let me know down in the comment section below who you think won this trade, whether it was Portland or Sacramento. Do you think that this is just a wash, it's not really that impactful, or do you think that there's actually a clear winner and loser in this deal? Obviously in the long run we'll find out eventually, who actually ended up winning it or losing it, but I'm always interested to see kind of what you guys have to say about trades and things like that down in the comment section below. But that is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then please be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.